What's up, guys? My name is Tai Zen. In this video, guys, I want to share with you guys a very fascinating component of Vietnam's culture, and it also applies across all of the Asian cultures in general. And it's the topic of the saving face culture. This is a extremely fascinating topic. However, it is a very difficult concept for Westerners to understand, especially people like in America and Europe. Okay, it's very difficult for the people in those cultures to understand. Now, I was fully aware of the Asian saving face culture even when I was living in America. However, I didn't fully understand it until I started coming back here to Vietnam to retire and live back here. And that's when I really was able to understand it very well. When I was living in America, it was really hard for me to explain to other people. But now that I've had enough experience here to live here, eat the food here, live the culture here, and interact with people here, I think I'm in a better position to explain this fascinating concept to Westerners. Okay, so there's two main ingredients that you need in order to understand the Asian saving face culture here in Vietnam. The first ingredient is that you have to know the language and the culture here. And by knowing the language and culture, what I mean by that is that you have to be able to speak the language well enough to be able to communicate abstract and non-abstract and material concepts. For example, what I mean is that, for example, like the material concepts such as basic stuff like, how to get your food, how to use the restroom, how to get instructions for directions, just basic physical security, kind of like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to be able to communicate in a way that communicates all the physical needs that you have. And then you also have to know enough language skills to be able to communicate the abstract concepts such as politics, such as finance, such as religion, and things like that. And those are abstract concepts. Those are intangible concepts. So until you have enough language skills to where you can be able to communicate to another Vietnamese person or another Asian person here in Asia about those physical and non-physical concepts, then it's really hard for you to be able to grasp the saving face culture. The second ingredient or the second component that you need to have in order to be able to understand the saving face culture in Vietnam and Asia is that you have to be able to live and interact with the people here on a daily basis. Okay, so I'm broadcasting right now from District 7, from the city of Ho Chi Minh City in the southern part of Vietnam, located in Southeast Asia. And now that I spent most of my life living in America as a refugee, but now that I have relocated back to Vietnam to live here and retire here, I've been able to understand the saving face culture much more than I ever did when I was living in America. And so in this video, I want to share with you guys. And I've been thinking about lots of different ways to share this saving face concept with a Western audience. And I realized the best way is to give examples of how it applies in family life, how it applies in the work environment as an employee, as a boss, and then how it works in business and how it works in the political system here, so that you guys have a better idea of it. And then hopefully by the end of this video, you guys have a better concept of why Vietnam chose to be a communist country, why China chose to be a communist country, and why we have certain things and behave in a certain way, so that whenever you guys see Asian people in the Western world, whenever you see other Vietnamese people and Asian people in America or in Europe, you will understand why they behave the way they do. Okay, so first of all, the saving face culture in Vietnamese is called Tay Dien, okay, or in the north it's pronounced Tay Dien, in the south where I'm from, it's pronounced, I think, Tei Yin, okay, or Han Yin, or in the north they call it, Han Zien, okay. So either way, and that's like the formal word for it, or on the streets, the informal word that we call it is Mak Mui, okay. Mak Mui, that's how it's pronounced, either both north and south. Okay, and mak means face, and mui means your nose. Okay, so the saving face culture, whenever you talk about it, they don't call it saving face in Vietnamese. They call it face nose. If you translate literally, it translates to English as face nose. So whenever we talk about, hey, don't do that because you're going to lose face, that's how you would say it in English. But in Vietnamese, if you translate literally, it would say, hey, you would don't do that because you're going to lose face, or you're going to lose face nose. You're going to lose your face and your nose. Okay, so let me give you an example here, and then as I give you guys the examples, then it'll help you guys open your mind and understand it some more. So when I first relocated back to Vietnam, I wanted to live in a beach city similar to San Diego, California, and I wanted to have I've always loved the beach when I lived in America, so I used to work a lot in Southern California. I used to fly around the country and help coach people on how to trade stocks, futures, forex options. So the school that I used to work for, I would fly around the country doing that quite a bit. And I used to go to lots of places in Southern California, and we had offices in Tampa and Orlando, Florida. So I would go there quite a bit also. And then my in-laws live in South Carolina, and so I used to go there and go down to the beaches over there too. So I've been to a lot of some of the most beautiful beaches in America. So all my life I've always wanted to live near the beach. And when I relocated back to Vietnam, I wanted to live in Da Nang. It's a city called Da Nang. It's in central Vietnam. Okay, so Vietnam is like a long strip of land that's 50 miles wide at the center, and about 350 miles wide at the head, and then at the tail it's about I think like 250 miles wide. So it's not a very big country, but it has a massive coastline. It has like over I think 1,300 miles of coastline on the eastern coast, and on the western side there's lots of mountain ranges. So that's why the Chinese, the Mongols, and a lot of people have tried to invade Vietnam, and they have not succeeded because of these natural barriers that protect the country of Vietnam. So we have lots and lots of beautiful beaches on the over 1,300 miles of coastline on the eastern coast. And if I'm off on those numbers a little bit, guys, don't jump on my ass about it. I looked them up a while back, and I may not remember it exactly, but there's over 1,000 miles of beautiful coastline in Vietnam. And that's why a lot of countries like China, like the Mongols, Mongolia, and like the French, like the Japanese, and even America tried to invade and take this land, because it has such beautiful beaches and so much food and natural resources here. Okay, so Da Nang, Hanoi is the capital, which is in the north. Da Nang is in the center, and then Ho Chi Minh City, where I'm at right now, is in the south. And I tried to relocate back to Da Nang and live there, but because I have my mom who lives way in the south of Vietnam, she lives about 11 hours drive south of Ho Chi Minh City. And so when I was coming back, I didn't want I came back here to retire and to take care of my mom, my sick mom. But when I came back to Da Nang, which is a beautiful city, I tried to get her to come up and live with me in the beautiful city of Da Nang, and she would not have it. She did not want to. She said it was too far north. She didn't know the place, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, well, let me do this then. Let me go back and live in the city of Ho Chi Minh City, where I'm at right now, in District 7, and then bring my mom from the small fishing village that I grew up, that I was born in, and bring her up here. She lives with me. I'm in a luxury apartment complex here in District 7, so there's no reason why she would say no to that, right? And she doesn't have to work. She doesn't do anything. I can take care of her. And that was the first reason I moved back to Ho Chi Minh City. And then the second reason was I have a little brother. Next month I'll be 49 years old, and my little brother I think is like 44, 45 years old. And so I was going to help him with his machine shop business. And when I came back here, several things I did not anticipate. Okay, number one was that I did not anticipate that my mom does not want to live with me. The reason is because if she lives with me up here, nobody knows her, she doesn't know anybody, so she has no face. And keep in mind, your face, there's no exact translation for it in English. The closest thing that you can translate it to into English is probably something like a combination of your honor, your dignity, your reputation, your credit, your how society perceives you. So all these are combined to define the word the word face in Vietnam. Okay, so for my mom to come up here and live up here in Ho Chi Minh City with me would be very difficult because she has no face, no honor, no dignity, no reputation here, because nobody here in the big city knows her and she doesn't know anybody. So even though she lives in a luxury apartment complex with me, it doesn't mean anything to her, because everybody in Vietnam lives for the face. That's the only thing, that is like the ultimate thing that they live for in Vietnam, is to have face, to have that dignity, that honor, and that reputation. Okay, so my little brother made some really bad business decisions, and so he went bankrupt, and he's like almost $100,000 in debt in the fishing village. So that forced him to come up here to Ho Chi Minh City to rebuild his career, rebuild his business, and rebuild his life, and try to get back on his feet. And he's been struggling to do that for the last I think 8 years now, because he doesn't have any capital. And the culture in Vietnam is that when you go bankrupt or you go broke, nobody wants to do business with you, and your friends leave you, and a lot of people just abandon you because they don't want you to become a cancer in their life and have to loan you money and things like that. So my mom has lived for like 7 or 8 years now with no face, because her youngest son, my younger brother is her youngest son, and so she has 3 sons. I'm the middle one, my little brother is the youngest one, and then me and the older one, we both went to America as refugees, and we ended up living in a poor ghetto black neighborhood, and we ended up getting involved with the wrong people, got involved with drugs. So because of that, I ended up doing like 14 years in federal prison in America for drugs. So my brother is still in federal prison right now. He has like a 37-year sentence, and he's done I think 29 or 30 years already. And thank God, that Donald Trump fixed the laws and corrected our sentence, because we were not supposed to be sentenced to that much time. Unfortunately, it doesn't help me anymore because I already finished my sentence, but for my brother, it does help him. So right now, he has pretty much immediate release, and so he has to wait for all the paperwork to get done before he gets released. Okay, so back to what I was saying, because my older brother and I went to federal prison for drugs in America, that very much dishonored our family. And my little brother always felt like, hey, we're a bunch of loser older brothers because we went to America, and instead of going to college and getting a degree and becoming doctors and lawyers and professionals, we ended up getting involved in drugs and went to federal prison instead. And so when I came out of federal prison, I learned how to start trading. I went in when I was 18 years old, and I got out when I was in my mid-30s, around 34 years old, and I learned how to trade stocks, futures, forex, and that's how I ended up retiring early. And after 11 years of trading, I was able to come back and retire in Vietnam. Okay, so in my mid-40s. So my little brother and my mom and my family, they don't understand that. They don't understand that I'm doing well for myself financially, even though I went to prison for nearly 14 years and I never finished high school, and I never went to college or anything like that, right? I went to college. I took a few courses, through correspondence courses, so I wouldn't really consider that going to college. But they don't understand that I am doing well financially. So because of that, all they know is that, hey, I'm a high school dropout. I went to prison for nearly 14 years. So it's very disgraceful. That's very dishonorable. That's very, very a losing face for myself and for the whole family. Now, keep in mind, I grew up in America, so we don't have a concept of losing face in America. So I don't feel that I lost any face, I really don't care what people think about me, I'm retired and I'm doing well for myself financially and my family, so I really don't care what other people think. Matter of fact, the only time I care about what anybody says is when they're paying my bills for me. Then that's when I open my ears and pay attention to what they have to say. Other than that, it's rare that I ever listen to anybody say anything about what I do or what I say or how I think or how I live my life, because they're not paying my bills. So why should I pay attention to them, right? So now I came back here to help out my little brother's business financially, because I do understand about how to be a better entrepreneur than he does. I make significantly more money than he does. I have an understanding of how business works, how to build a business, how to make it successful, much, much more so than he does, right? And I'm not that successful, and I still know more about building a business than he does, okay? Because I just invested a lot more time to learn how to do that in America than he ever did. He never finished the 7th grade, so he doesn't know how to build a business. He doesn't know how the business world works. He doesn't know sales. He doesn't know marketing. He doesn't know how to create a product. He doesn't know how to create a service. So all that, I thought I would come back here. When I relocated back to Vietnam, I would help him and help my mom, who was sick, help my brother, who's not doing so well in business, and over $100,000 in debt, okay? When I come back here, I find out that my brother doesn't want my help. My mom doesn't want my help. She wants me to just send her money each month so she can live in the small village that she's in, and then my brother just wants me to loan him the money, and then so he can go off and do whatever he wants in his business, okay? So now I am doing these things because here's the reason why. Because I realized that I wanted my mom to have a better life, be able to go to the international hospitals here and be able to have just a overall better lifestyle. But for my mom, she has no face, no honor, no dignity, no reputation, no social worthiness by living here in Ho Chi Minh City in a luxury apartment complex with me. She actually has more quality of life by living in the small fishing village that we come from. Even though she's living there poor, right? She gets to brag to her friends and all the neighbors that, oh, you know, my son from America has come back now to Vietnam. You know, he's doing well financially. He can take care of himself. He lives in District 7 in a rich neighborhood. He lives in a luxury apartment complex that most people cannot afford to live in. And so being able to brag about her son doing well business-wise and doing well financially and living in a wealthy neighborhood, that gives her more face, more honor, more dignity, more reputation, more social worthiness than actually living here herself. So she lives here and I'm doing well. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that because all I do is just wear a t-shirt and wear sandals and wear athletic shorts because that's what I feel comfortable in, because I'm working out a lot to try to lose some weight here to help my heart, because I've had 3 heart attacks already. So because of that, she doesn't understand that. She doesn't understand that for me, having personal freedom is more important than having material wealth, okay? So the only reason why I live in this wealthy neighborhood in District 7 is because, of the safety and the conveniences and things like that. So I want my family to be in a safe environment, and the reality is Vietnam is very, very safe. It doesn't have all the bullshit violence like in America and some of the Western countries because of this losing face culture, right? It's very, very losing face for a person to be physically violent. So that's why you don't have, it's not like when I grew up in America in the ghettos, like me and all my black friends, we would go and fight and start shit and do shit like that. And then if you live in a Latino community, there's this, macho attitude that the Latinos have that's very prevalent. So when I was hanging around with my Latino friends, when other Latinos, they would always say things that would, touch our masculinity and our macho-ness. So we would fight them, physically do that. Over here, any type of physical confrontation is extremely, extremely low class. It's extremely, extremely losing face, okay? So because of that, like pretty much I wouldn't say all, but the vast, vast majority of people who graduate from high school and definitely graduate from college, you will not see them speak with a loud voice or get confrontational or get physically violent. Like for someone that's a college educated person here, whether it's male or female in Vietnam, to speak at a loud volume like I am right now, even that is considered uncivilized, right? That uneducated. So whenever you hear someone talk as loud as I do or have the volume that I have, then more than likely they probably did not graduate college here in Asia or in Vietnam, because the people here that graduate college here, whether it's men or women, they are extremely soft-spoken and what in America we would call soft-spoken and well-mannered, right? No, fast, jerky hand motions, no, physical big movements and postures with their hands and their body, like the Latino culture or like the Italian culture, where they speak a lot with their hands and their culture. Like a lot of the macho cultures, like the Latino cultures, okay, they move a lot with their hands and their body while they're speaking. Over here in Asia, right, the physical motions are a lot softer and more gentler, and just less movement of the human body and the facial gestures and things like that, simply because all those are signs of low education and lower class, and it's losing face. So nobody on purpose over here goes to college, gets educated to come back and have all those crazy gestures, okay, and body movements and loud voices like that. When you hear that, it's usually people who have not finished high school, okay, because nobody, just so you guys know, nobody in Asia, especially in Vietnam, China, places like that, there's no hippie culture here. The reason why is because you work and you go to school and you get educated to elevate your social status. You don't purposely do all those things and become a hippie and look, unshaven and look all that messy and look like, you haven't bathed in months and weeks to look like you're uneducated and have no money. Even though you might be very educated and even though you might have a lot of money, that's not something that's going to exist here in Vietnam because of the saving face culture. You don't purposely dress down. You purposely don't talk down to lower your status and your face, okay, to cause yourself to lose face, okay? So you won't see any college educated girls over here dressing skanky or dressing really like showing a lot of body parts, a lot of skin, because that's just losing face. That's low class, okay? Anything that lowers your class or your social status causes you to lose face here in Vietnam. So you want to do everything you can to increase your social status. Everything you do, say, and interact with is to increase your social status so that you can increase your face, okay? So back to what I was saying about my mom. She would rather stay in the poor fishing village, in the poor environment, and live by herself. And you might say, well, Ty, that's pretty bad, man. Like, you're abandoning your mom, you're not taking care of her. Yes, you're sending her money each month to take care of herself, but she's not doing well like that, And so what happens is, whenever you might think that from an American or Western perspective, but what I realized was that my mom did not have a good quality of life living in a luxury apartment complex with me in Ho Chi Minh City. She actually has a higher quality of life, and I can see like her, physically every day it was harder for her to get up and move around and walk around and just be physical because she's 70-something years old already. But then I noticed that every time she goes back to the village, I can see her on the security cameras. She's much more vibrant, she's talking to people, and she's enjoying life a lot more. And that's when I realized that even though on the surface, when I asked my mom, like, why aren't you living here with me in a nice luxury apartment complex in a wealthy neighborhood with me in Ho Chi Minh City? Why do you want to go back and live in the poor fishing village for, right? And she tells me, oh, I own the house down there. I got to go back and watch the house. I got to take care of the house. And I got to do all these things, there's floods there. I got to make sure it doesn't flood the house and, electricity and all this stuff, right? On the surface, if you don't know about the saving face culture, you might think, well, yeah, she's got property back there, so she wants to maintain her property and everything. But the reality is that when she goes back there, she has more face. Now, keep in mind this, she won't say that. She won't say that she has more face and more honor and more dignity when she's living in the fishing village, right? She won't say that because it's so pervasive here in Vietnam. People are so used to this losing face culture, right? The saving face culture, that they don't even know that they're doing that to have face. If you ask them, like, they have to sit there and really, really think about it. Oh yeah, I'm doing it because I have more face. living in a poor village where I can brag about my son coming back from America. He's doing well, he's speaking English, he's speaking Spanish, he knows multiple languages, he's been in multiple countries, and he has businesses, you know, and he has clients and customers all over the world. She won't say that. She won't say that, hey, that's the reason why I want to live in a poor fishing village in my village. I don't want to go live in your fancy, you know, luxury apartment complex because I have more face here. Even though I'm poor, everybody in my neighborhood knows that I'm doing well because my son is sending me money each month, and my son is doing well in the big city, and you know, he's an international citizen that travels around the world. About that, you know, she won't say that. She just says that if you ask her on the surface, she'll just say, oh, you know, my house is down there. I have to watch my house. I can't leave my house alone. All this stuff, right? I have people renting the front porch of my house to sell food and stuff. I got to collect money. And then, you know, I sell vinegar and I sell, you know, homemade alcohol and stuff. So there's people that want to buy the vinegar and the alcohol from me. So I have to sell them this stuff. And, I have to, I have a business to run down there. But the reality is, all her businesses make about, I would say, like less than $50 a month, and I'm sending her several hundreds of dollars each month. So I'm telling her, like, let me give you this money each month, Mom, and you just stay with me here in District 7 and play with the grandkids, and then that frees me up so I can trade and make even more money, and then you can have an even better life. And she doesn't want any of that. She doesn't want any of that. Whenever I take my mom to, like, the war museums here in Ho Chi Minh City and all the top tourist destinations, right? She doesn't want any of that. She doesn't care about any of that, right? My mom loves to hear the folk opera songs, right? I think that's in Vietnamese it's called Cá Lương, okay? In English, I think you translate as, traditional folk music or traditional folk opera songs, and it's usually about, people, the agricultural and the fishing people living the life in Vietnam before the war with America, and stuff like that. So she likes to see that, she listens to it every day, we bought her a tablet, and my brother bought her a tablet, and she watches it on YouTube every day. And then when she comes to Ho Chi Minh City, I want her to go and then take her to one of these traditional operas at the theaters so she can actually see it in real life, because she's never seen it. She's only heard it on the radio, and she's only heard it on the YouTube and seen it on YouTube, but she's never actually watched a real traditional folk opera in real life, okay? And she doesn't care, and she doesn't want any of that, right? You would think that, oh man, someone who's, a big fan of sports or football or soccer or basketball or something, when they finally get a chance to attend a live event, they would be happy as hell to do that, right? But the reality is, she doesn't want any of that. Matter of fact, she wants to spend as very little time in Ho Chi Minh City as she can. Whenever she comes up here to visit me, in the past, when she comes up to Ho Chi Minh City, she would only come up here for medical reasons because of the hospitals here. There's no hospitals in her small village, so she has to come up here for medical checkups and stuff like that. So she usually rides the bus. My brother would go down there, and then they would pay the bus to come up here, and each bus ticket would be like around, I think, like $8, okay, for each person. So my brother and my mom would come up here, and then she would get her medical checkup, and then my brother would put her on the bus, and she would go right back, okay? There's no touring, like, other than coming up here, going to the bus station, and from the bus station going to the hospital. My mom has not seen any other parts of Ho Chi Minh City, okay? Even though she's been living in Vietnam for all her life, for 70-something years, right? Like, I have seen more of Ho Chi Minh City than probably all of my family in my village combined, okay, since I've been back. And I haven't even gone that to very many spots, because I've been busy building our trading software so that we can take advantage of the next bull market in the cryptocurrency market when Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies go back up. So I've been busy with that, and I haven't even had a lot of time to go and tour Ho Chi Minh City, okay, since I've been back here. But every time I go eat with my family and stuff, or meet business acquaintances and customers and clients, I would go out there, and I would on purpose go to a different restaurant in a different district, to different places, just so I can learn more about the city. And that alone, I've seen more of Ho Chi Minh City and know more about it than pretty much all of my family combined in the small fishing village that I was born in, okay? So the reason why they don't come up here is because they don't go to different museums, restaurants, and tourist destinations and places like that in Ho Chi Minh City is because to them that's a losing face. Like, you don't have no money, what are you doing going to a museum for? If you're poor, you shouldn't be going to a museum, you shouldn't be going to a fancy restaurant, you shouldn't be going to any of these places, okay? So the culture here in Vietnam, okay, is there's a Vietnamese word for it. It's called mặc cảm, okay? Mặc cảm, okay? And mặc means obvious face, you know. Cảm, I don't even know how the exact translation for that in English is. I don't think there's even a word for it, but it's almost like self-deprecating. Okay, mặc cảm is almost like, it's the closest thing I can think of in English is prejudging oneself to be of lower social value. So the idea is when someone has the mặc cảm, okay, they feel like, oh, you know, I'm not worthy of going into this museum. I'm not worthy of going to this theater. I'm not worthy of going to this concert. I'm not worthy of going to check out the government office buildings here that control the city, right? Or that, you know, govern the city, because I'm too poor. I'm not worthy of going in there. So what happens is, I'll give you an example, like the taxi drivers, when they take me to, like several times I've had to meet my clients at the 5-star Sheraton Hotel in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City here, and the drivers would take me there and they would say, man, this is a fancy 5-star hotel here. And I said, yeah, you know, you ever come in and check it out to see what it looks like? And they go, oh, hell no, I can't do that. Right? And I'm like, why? Like, you never go in there just to buy a coffee just to see what it looks like in there? And they go, hell no, why would I do that? You know, I'm poor, you know? And I'm like, well, just to see what a 5-star hotel looks like. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can. You just walk in there and buy you a coffee, look around the lobby and see what it looks like, what a 5-star hotel looks like. And they're like, no, you can't do that when you're poor. And so there's this self-imposed judgment of self-worthiness and this judgment of self-value that, hey, I'm not worthy to go into this 5-star hotel because I'm poor or I'm uneducated or things like that. So this is a component of the saving face culture, is they just don't believe that it's worth going in there. So just keep that in mind, so that whenever you invite someone to business, you might be accustomed to being business meetings in a 3, 4, 5-star hotel, whereas the locals here might not be, especially if they came from a poor background. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, or they might have money, but they come from an uneducated background, right? And they might not feel comfortable meeting with you in there, where like I would, or like you would if you came from a Western country. Okay, so now my mom, she won't go to these places because she has this sense of mặc cảm. Okay, she has this feeling of mặc cảm, where she feels like, hey, you know, I'm not worthy, I'm not, you know, rich enough, I'm not educated enough to go to these places. So she never goes here, right? So whenever she comes up here, right, I don't want her driving in a car at 40 kilometers an hour, or I mean at 50, 60 kilometers an hour, which is about 35 miles an hour on a 1-lane road, to come up here. I mean, it's not smooth, it's not, the road is not smooth, it's not level and everything. So it's a massive rough ride. It's like driving an all-terrain vehicle, driving a Jeep in America on an all-terrain, you know, off-road to come up here to the big city. So because of that, I did that once and I almost broke my back driving to my fishing village for 11 hours. So I told myself, like, I'm not going to drive this bullshit again. Next time I'm just going to fly into the closest city and then just drive for 2 hours instead of 11 hours. So because of, ever since I've come back to Vietnam, I just won't let my mom drive that rough journey no more. So I have her driving up 2 hours to the city of called Cà Mau, which is the primary city in the province of Cà Mau where we live in the southern part of Vietnam. And then from there she flies like 40 minutes to Ho Chi Minh City. So her total trip time is 3 hours, 2 hours of driving and 1 hour of flying, okay? And then I pick her up from the airport, and when she comes out of the airport, you can see that, you know, she's walking straight and everything, because you have to be wealthy in order to fly in Vietnam. So for her, ever since I came back to Vietnam, she's been like, I think she's like 72 years old now. and she's never flown once in her life. And then ever since I've come back to Vietnam, I think she's flown like 15, 16 times already, right? And she remembers, I don't remember how many times she's flown, but she remembers every trip on the days, and like she's 70-something years old, but she remembers every flight, where she's sitting at, everything. And she remembers who's taking her to the airport and who's greeting her when she goes back to the village. So just coming up here to visit me allows her to fly up here and then fly back to her village. And now she has tremendous amount of faith, tremendous amount of dignity, a tremendous amount of honor and respect from the community. Now all the old ladies, all her friends, all the neighbors that used to laugh at her and look down on her and shy away from her and ignore her, like they would literally walk, and then when they see my mom sitting on the porch when, you know, my brother went bankrupt for the last 8 years before I came home, they would literally walk, and then when they walk by her house, they would see her on the front porch, and they would just like, oh, pretend to look at birds or planes or some stupid shit, and then just ignore her so that they wouldn't have to say hello to her, right? And now that I've come back and she's flying back and forth to the city, they all know this. They all know that she's doing that, and now they think that she has money and she's wealthy now, and so now she has a tremendous amount of faith. And because of that, she, even though she doesn't go and drink coffee, they invite her to go drink coffee, drink tea, to go have lunch, have breakfast with them every day, all the neighbors, and she declines pretty much all of them, right? However, inside, even though she knows they're treacherous bastards that ignored her and left her for dead when her and her son went bankrupt, you know, even though she knows that she's doing better now, right? Even though she knows that they're not her real friends, she still has a tremendous sense of honor, dignity, and respect and self-worthiness, and tremendous amount of faith, okay, by living in that poor fishing village. And that keeps her going a lot more, okay? I can see that when she was living with me in Ho Chi Minh City, her health and her just spiritual well-being was declining week by week. And she kept asking to go back to the village and take care of her house and everything. And she would never say that, hey, I need to go back so I can get more faith, right? Maybe even at a conscious level, she doesn't even know that that's what she needs to feed her spiritual well-being, okay? But I can see that, so I would fly her back, and then she would be a lot livelier on the security cameras when I'm watching her from the security cameras that I put into her house, and I can see she's a lot livelier. Her body movements are a lot more strong. It's a lot stronger. It's a lot healthier. A lot more vibrant. A lot more energetic, and I can see that she's spiritually a lot livelier. So because of that, I could not keep forcing her to stay with me in Ho Chi Minh City, so I just let her go back to the small fishing village. So that's just one example from my mom about the faith, okay? I'm going to use another example about my little brother. So for many years, he kind of looked down on me and my older brother, because instead of going to America and getting college degrees and becoming doctors and lawyers and professionals, you know, we went there, got involved in drugs and went to prison, and now we're coming back here to Vietnam. And my brother doesn't truly understand how well I'm doing financially. He doesn't know what the stock market is. He doesn't know what the Forex market is. He doesn't know what the cryptocurrency market is. He doesn't know what Bitcoin is. He doesn't know what any of that stuff is, okay? So for me to say that I'm doing well, you know, financially from trading Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies or stocks and Forex and oil and gold, he doesn't have a concept of that. Because, you know, whenever I tell him I'm trading gold or oil or something, he's like, where? Like, where's the warehouse? Where's the containers full of oil or boats that you're shipping oil from that you're buying and selling? And I tell him I'm buying it on paper on the internet. And that's just beyond his concept. So I don't even bother explaining to him no more. And so what happens is, for many years he looked down on me, right? So because of that, now he comes back and he knows I have more money than he does, so he has to borrow money from me, and it's a massive losing phase. Like, he won't even ask me to borrow money. Like, he'll talk about every day, he'll talk about how he's struggling financially, how he needs capital and everything, but he won't open his mouth once to say, hey, can you loan me some money? Because that would entail that he's losing a lot of faith, because all these years he looked down on me and my older brother for going to America and ending up in prison, and now I come back to Vietnam and he has to borrow money from me, okay? And he did well. At one point, he did really well financially for himself. He was making like 15 to 20,000 US dollars a month when he had like 3 fishing boats and he had like 40, 50 guys, 60 guys working for him. He did financially well in the fishing village, but because he didn't know how to scale and because he was doing a lot of things to save face and to have face instead of doing things to grow his business, he made some really bad business decisions and ended up being bankrupt and broke and being over $100,000 in debt. And that's massive. If you guys want to have a scale or a concept of how much $100,000 in debt is, that's like being $1 million in debt in the US, okay? Just whatever the amount of money is in Vietnam, just multiply it by 10, and that's how much it's worth in US dollars, okay? So over here, he won't ask me. So it took me several weeks, and like I can see that he was really, really stressed out about asking me to borrow money, but he won't open his mouth to ask that, and when I would ask him like, hey, do you need to borrow some money to grow your business, to help you get ahead, he would never say yes. Imagine this, like he's struggling financially, like he's living in a garage, with his family and everything, and he's struggling financially, and he could not bring himself to open his mouth and say, hey, big brother, can you loan me some money, right? And so I would ask him, at first, like, hey, do you need some money to grow your business? Now, I know that he does, okay? So I'm just asking him just to be polite and just to make sure that he really needs it. I don't want to just offer him money when he doesn't need it. And I could be using that capital to trade Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and make way more money than loaning it to him because he doesn't know what the hell to do with it, right? And he would go around and talk about how he uses so much metal each month, and if he had extra money, he could buy some more supplies, more materials, more metal, and more steel to have it in advance. And his customers, he could buy more lathes and welding machines and machines and all this stuff for his machine shop, right? And I'm saying, yeah, but would it help you if I loan you some money? And even a simple question like that, he couldn't say yes. He could not say yes to that. Because the reason why is because if he said yes, that would mean that he needed my help. And anytime you need somebody else's help in Vietnam, right? If you show to another man or to another person that you need help, right? That lowers your social status, which lowers your face, which causes you to lose face. And even though he's dead broke, fucking poor as shit and bankrupt as shit, he won't even open his mouth to say, hey, can you loan me some money? Okay? Now, the other thing too is this, okay? And so I finally got to the point where I said, hey, how come when I ask you if you need some money, you can't say yes? And he says, well, if you think that I'm in a position where I need money or I need, some capital to grow my business, and you think that would help me, and he would say all these things and go around, beat around the bush and go in circles, go around this way, but he would never go straight and say, hey, I need to borrow some money, right? Because he could not open his mouth to say, I need some help, I need some financial help, right? And even though, and this is like really weird, like when you see the situations, the saving face culture is so strong that even though just by saying, hey, can you loan me some money, big brother, right? It would completely change his financial life. He won't say it because by saying it would indicate that he needs help. And telling another person that you need help in Vietnam is a massive losing face. So you never say you need help. Even if you need help, like unless you fall in the water and you're drowning or something that's obvious like that, or you're on fire or something like that, then if you scream for help, then it's okay. But for something that in your business, in your school, in your culture, you just don't ask for help from anyone. Like that's why you don't see too many people in Vietnam asking for directions or asking how to do something. So even though, I started the first Bitcoin and cryptocurrency trading and investing channel on the internet in English that I know of, right? Back in 2013. When I come back here and I'm speaking at the meetups, the conferences about how to trade and invest in Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, right? You don't have one speaker ask me, how to trade or how to invest in cryptocurrencies, right? You'll have people in the audience ask me, because that's assumed that if I'm the speaker on stage, that the people that's coming to listen to me is because they don't know. But the other guest speakers on the stage, they won't ask me. Like, they won't even talk to me, right? For fear that people might think that they are asking me how to trade Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies. Now, I know for a fact, right, that there's no way that the traders in Vietnam can have access to the American and Western exchanges. So there's no way that they would know certain strategies on how to trade and invest money, okay? There's no way that they would know that or be able to practice that, because they don't have access to those types of Western exchanges to where they can do those trading strategies safely and effectively, okay? It's just something, for example, like if you wanted to sell $1 million worth of Bitcoin, that's not something that you can do easily in Vietnam, okay? That's not something that you can easily do in Vietnam. So in order to do that, someone that knows how to do that, they would have to have access to an American, a Canadian, Australian, or Western exchange, and be able to do that effectively, right? And be able to do that. Our team, myself and my team, we have done that several times already. So because of that, we have experience in knowing how to buy $1 million worth of cryptocurrencies or sell $1 million worth of cryptocurrencies. But over here, it's extremely difficult for me to believe that someone knows how to do that, because I've tried multiple times over here and it's not easy. It's not easy because of the capital controls that they have in the financial markets here. So the guys that are the guest speakers on stage with me, it's really hard for me to believe that they would be able to know how to do that effectively on a large scale, but they will not open their mouth and ask me how it's done. They know that I'm from I've been trading in the Western countries for many years, and I'm coming back to Vietnam. They know that I know that way better than they do, but they will not open their mouth. Matter of fact, they won't even speak to me at a conference for fear that other people might judge and say that, oh, you know what, that guy doesn't really know. He has to ask Ty how to trade Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies. And that will cause them to lose face in front of their audience, so they would never do that. Okay, like when I go to any conference here, it's rare that any speakers talk to each other about trading or investing or sharing ideas, because that implies that you don't know. And if you don't know, that means that you're lower on the social status, and that means that you lose face. So because of that, right, in America, when I go to a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency conference or a stock trading conference or a gold trading conference, everybody shares ideas. Like, we can be on stage talking, 10 people on stage, right? And then when we finish, we'll gather together, trade ideas, trade, you know, hey, do you have a problem with this? Hey, how are you doing this? How are you solving this? Hey, what's the easiest way to buy? How are you buying $1 million worth of Bitcoins? You know, how are you selling it? What's the easiest way? What's the way to reduce taxes, transaction fees, you know, everything, right? Over here, you won't have any of that, because it causes you to lose face, okay? So that's another business example. That's another example with my little brother. Another example would be, let me share with you guys some of the employees that I've hired over here. So over here, no matter how, like when you hire employees over here to work for you, or you start a business over here in Vietnam, because of the saving face culture, it's almost 100% certain that the employees will not do what you ask them to do in the first few months that you work with them. It's almost guaranteed they will not do what you want them to do. So let's just say that you're a college educated person, you understand English very well, you understand how to communicate and message about your product or your service on your website, right? And you ask your employees, hey, make sure when you write it like this. You spell it out this way, you format it this way, you write it this way, in this manner, right? So that a fifth grader can understand what your product and your services is, because you don't want no confusion in your marketing, okay? When you ask the Vietnamese employees to go do that, right, it's almost guaranteed they will not do it. They have to do everything they can to make it as complex and as complicated as possible to show how educated they are, because they went to school, they went to college to be at this level in society, so that they can, this social status, so they can have face. And so when you tell them, hey, dumb it down so that a fifth grader can understand our product and our services, it's almost physically and mentally, it's almost impossible for them to do that. The reason is because by doing that, that would imply that they only have a 5th grade education. That would imply that they're not educated enough to write at a college level. So because of that, they will do it the way they think is better, so they will make the thing more complicated, more complex, right? They never look at simplicity, right? Because if you're good in sales and marketing in America, you would know that the key secret to sales and marketing is keeping things simple so that people can understand your products and services. So over here, it's like contradictory to them. They went to school, they busted their ass studying here, go to school, trying to score high and everything, and now you're telling them to dumb it down and be a dummy and write it at a lower level education. It's extremely difficult, right? So when we hire translators, transcriptionists, internet marketers and stuff to do stuff for us, and we ask them, I tell them, hey, keep it simple. I want you to write it so that don't use these words. These words are too complicated. Don't use college level words. Use junior high or middle school level words, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade level words, so that everyone can understand it. It's almost like putting a gun to their head and you tell them to write at a lower level. They won't be able to do it. Even when you ask them to speak at a lower education level so that you can understand it, they won't do it because because they just won't lower their social status, because lowering your social status means that you're going to lose face, and they cannot lose face no matter what you do. Okay, so the other thing too is that, like, when we hire the engineers to do the software for us, the trading software for us, and do the math, so it's very simple so that the math is correct. Don't freaking make it the formulas and everything too complicated and everything. They can't help it. They have to make it complicated, because by making it simple software, that would imply that they're not at a high level engineering, or they're not at a high level education. So you got to be aware of these things when you come and you hire people in Vietnam, okay? That they cannot bring themselves to a lower education level when they finish college, okay? It's very, very difficult for them to do that, okay? So that's another example, right? Now, let's talk about the communist political system here in Vietnam, okay? When I first came back here, I thought, why don't they have a democratic system here? And I'll talk about this more in depth, okay? The reason why they don't have a democratic system here, like in America, you have people such as AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's nobody. She's not highly educated. She has no political experience, no governing experience, no leadership experience, no business experience, and America voted her in to be a congresswoman. She's the youngest congressman or congresswoman in American history, right? That will never, ever, ever happen in a saving face culture. For one, right, if you were uneducated, not a leader, don't know how to govern, don't know how to run business, don't know how to make money, right, you would never even put yourself in a position to be elected for a political position, okay? Because when you're in a political position here in Vietnam, you are representing a huge body of people, right? Or your district, or your ward, or your commune, or your town, or your city, and the entire community is not going to accept the fact that you have no leadership skills, no governing skills, no business skills, no money-making skills, no high-level education, and you want to stand out there and represent us. That's not going to happen, okay? So that's why, and I'll make a future video about that, about the political system here in Vietnam compared to like America and the Western countries, and why I believe that the democratic government systems will never, ever, ever, ever happen in a place like, in a saving face culture such as Vietnam or China or places like that. It's never going to happen, guys. Like, you let that go, okay? Let that idea go. That's like, telling the Latino guys in a Latino culture to be, to act feminine or something like that. That's not in their culture. Like, if you're a man, you're a masculine man, and you do everything you can to be a masculine man. You don't go out of your way to be feminine, or to act feminine, or look feminine, or perceived as feminine. Okay, that's just a taboo in the Latino culture, right? I know that because I have lots of Latino friends. I speak, Spanish, read and write Spanish fluently, so I understand that culture very well. I love their culture. I love their food, and I have lots of Latino friends, so I know their culture. You don't go and tell a Latino guy, to be a sissy or be feminine. That's very, very taboo in their culture. Okay, that's unheard of. You don't go out of your way to emasculate yourself in front of other men in the Latino culture, okay? So over here, you don't do things to emasculate, to lower your social status and lose your face. So that's why that something like the situation with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becoming the youngest woman or the youngest congressperson in American history, I'm willing to bet that will never happen. I'll bet all my cryptocurrencies, all the money I have, that will never happen as long as in my lifetime in this saving face culture. Okay, so and the reason is because that's very losing face. If Vietnam decides to send a diplomat or an ambassador to another country to represent them, right? It's inconceivable to them that they would send somebody that is uneducated, that's lower status, that has no face. Like, they have to send somebody that is wealthy, extremely educated, extremely well connected, and knows how to be a leader, and knows how to negotiate, knows how to talk to people before they ever get that role. They're not going to send somebody to represent them that has lower social status. They have to be somebody that's at the top of the face culture here. Like, they have to have the biggest, not physical face, but they have to have a lot of face and a lot of dignity, a lot of honor, a lot of respect in this country first before they allow you to go and represent them in another country. So forget the idea that that's ever going to happen in Vietnam or any saving face culture, okay? So the other thing too is that when in the saving face culture, right, it prevents a lot of innovation, okay? It prevents innovation, and that, if you ever wonder why does China copy everybody? Why does Vietnam copy everybody? Okay, why aren't they innovators like in America, like in Silicon Valley, like in Austin, Texas, like in how like in America, the one thing that I love about America is you have these crazy ass white people, man. They'll go take an 18-wheeler engine and go put it on a go-kart or put it on a bicycle and see if they can make it run. I love that crazy innovative mentality in America. Let's go, you got these crazy white people that go, let me go and strap a freaking bomb, a rocket engine to a go-kart, and let's go out to the salt flats in the Mojave Desert, and let's light this sucker up, strap my ass in there, put a helmet on, strap my ass in there, and see how fast I can go and set a land record, right? You got these crazy ass people like this in America, and I love that. I love that they have the balls to just go out there and try some of the craziest shit ever, right? Go jump off a bridge and tie a rubber band to your ankles and jump off a bridge and see if it doesn't scare the shit out of you, okay? You don't see any of those crazy things like that, right? Those innovative things in Vietnam, and it's because of this saving face culture, because if you go try something new and you fail, the cost of failure here, you lose so much face here in Vietnam. It's inconceivable to an American how shameful that is. Like, it's so shameful to fail at a business or fail at a venture or fail at anything, that it's so shameful, and you'll be laughed at so hard here, right? And you lose so much face that you literally have to move out of the town that you're in. Like, you literally, like my younger brother, when he went bankrupt and lost all his business, his boats and everything, he literally could not live there no more. And now nobody said, hey man, you gotta get out of here because you're $100,000 in debt. No, nobody told him that. No bank, no businessman, no friend, no family. No one told him that. But the shame, the losing face shame is so bad, right, that he has to leave. And this happens throughout all of Vietnam, okay? The reason why Ho Chi Minh City is growing at a massive rate, right, is because of the economic opportunities here. Ho Chi Minh City, this one single city is responsible for like over 1/3 of the GDP output of Vietnam, okay? So it's massive. So everybody's coming here to make money, and that's the first reason. The number two reason that everybody's coming here to Ho Chi Minh City is because they went bust, or they went bankrupt, or they went broke in their town, and nobody wants to do business with them anymore because it's so shameful, okay, that they have to come to the big city and leave, okay? So that's the number two reason that I have noticed that people come to the big cities here, is because of that losing face culture, okay? Now, Okay, now I'll give you another example of I'm trying to give you as many examples as I can, right, in different scenarios so that you guys can see this, right? Now, we hired like some engineers to build our cryptocurrency trading software, okay? At first, they didn't believe that we actually made money from cryptocurrency trading and investing, because they've seen a lot of people say that they're traders and investors in Vietnam, but they've never actually seen somebody make money from it. So they thought, you know, at first they were kind of skeptical at first, and so they agreed to, instead of like just getting a full salary for the software, they agreed to get a smaller salary, you know, which is still above average, but it's not like the top salaries in Vietnam for software engineers, and they would get a percentage of sales from the software, okay? And by the time we were able to verify that the math and the logic statements were correct in the software, right? They decided that they're going to keep the software and run off with it. They decided that unless we make them business partners, right? They wanted us to make them business partners in our company, and then they'll lease the software to us. You know, they're not going to give us the software that we paid them to build, right? So I didn't want any problems. I didn't want anybody to say that I came from America and I came back to Vietnam and I'm taking advantage of the poor people here, or I'm taking advantage of the people here that is not well traveled or have less money than I do. So even though they stole our software and took it away, right? They already worked like 3 weeks that month already. So I just paid them the full month's salary to all the engineers, so that no one can ever say that, hey, you know, I try to take advantage of anyone here, right? And the lead engineer, right, he returns the money back to me. You know, he sends the cryptocurrencies back to me, even though I paid him. He sent it back to me, right? And it's a sign that, hey, I don't need your money, because for me to pay them like that last month like that, you know, it's kind of like out of pity, and that lowers their social status. So even though they stole my software that I paid them to build, and they stole our ideas, our patents, and our trading strategies and everything, right? They won't accept the last month's payment, because that is to them a sign of pity. So they won't do that. So that's another example of the saving face, because if they are being pitied by me, right, they would lose face. Okay, so nobody wants pity from somebody else. So here's another example. Like, there's kids that are like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. While you're eating at the street restaurants and the street vendors and the food vendors on the streets, when you eat there, sometimes they will come and, you know, hold a basket of bubble gum or candy or lottery tickets or, you know, fruit or nuts or something like that to sell to you. And several times I've said, you know, like, I don't eat those nuts that you're selling. I don't eat the fruit that you're selling. I don't play the lottery tickets, right? But, you know, here's some money, you know, you can take it, you know. They actually will decline that. They will not accept that money, okay? Because you would think, okay, wait, you're going around, you know, asking for money, you're begging for money, so here's some money, you know, like, what's the big deal, okay? To them, they won't take that, and the reason why they're selling the nuts or the fruit or the vegetables, or they'll sell something, right? Because they can now say that they made money from selling it to you instead of begging you for the money, okay? So, but the reality is, if you come from the West and you come here, you're seeing it, it's obvious that they are begging for money. They're panhandlers, right? So in Austin, Texas, or in San Diego, or in New York, or places like that, where I see somebody asking for money, if I give them money, it's like, you know, if I choose to give it to them, I give it to them, and then I move on, right? But over here, and usually the person asking for the money usually accepts the money, and they move on, and I move on, and cool deal. They say thanks, and that's it, right? And then I say cool, and we move on. But over here, because of the saving face culture, they won't beg you for money. Like, almost every panhandler here has something to sell. Even if it's just some, you know, small gift item made from leaves or something, from banana leaves or from straws or something like that, they will sell you something to ask for the money. And it's very obvious who the street vendors are versus the panhandlers are, the people begging for money, right? Because The street vendors, like, you know, they'll lay out a blanket, they'll put their fruit there, and they'll sell it, and then they're every day, they put the price on it, and you can negotiate the price with them and everything. Whereas the panhandlers, it's obvious the stuff that they sell is not something that is needed. Like, it's not a commonly consumed food item, or it's not a common household item. It's just stuff that, you know, like they went and picked off some leaves, folded it into a gift item, and they're trying to sell it. Or they go and get some lottery tickets and they sell it. And it's just, when you see it, it's very obvious that they are not street vendors, they are panhandlers, okay? So, and in case you're listening to this and English is not your primary language, a panhandler is someone who goes and begs for money, okay? So, and so even the kids will not accept your money. It's very weird. When you try to give them the money, they will give you the bubble gum, or they will give you the candy, or they'll give you the fruit. But they want to be seen as selling you something and not just asking you for money, even though you and I know that they are just asking for money. Okay, so that's another part of the saving face culture that's very fascinating to me. That even though they're asking for money and I try to give it to them, they won't accept it unless I take their candy or their nuts or their fruit or their vegetables or their gift items. Okay, so that's those are several examples, okay, of the saving face culture. And this has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years, guys, in most of these Asian countries like Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Korea, Japan. This is not going to go away anytime soon. It's just a level of how, the more developed that they are, the less obvious it is. And like, you know, Vietnam is not as well developed as Japan is, or South Korea. So it might not be so obvious when you're going there. You'll see it more obviously when you come to Vietnam, because Vietnam is a developing country. It's fast developing, guys. It's one of the fastest developing countries in the world, guys. If you are one of those risk takers and entrepreneurs, you have got to come to Vietnam and check it out. The business opportunities here are ungodly. Like pretty much anything that is successful, like a gym, a coffee shop, a restaurant, just anything that you see that's common in America, when you come to Vietnam and do it, you're gonna make a killing. Okay, you're gonna make a killing. All right. So now, one last thing that I want to stress about the saving face culture here is that in Vietnam, right, everything here is by age. Okay, they have this weird, messed up concept that if you're older, that you must know more, and you have more experience. Okay, that's just a common belief here, right? It's not like in America where next month I'll be 49 years old, and you have like a teenage 15, 16-year-old trader come up and ask me, you know, like, hey, you know, like, Ty, what are you doing this? Or, hey, you know, I don't think what you said about this is a good idea or a good strategy. Like, I will be challenged by teenagers in America. I will be challenged by 30-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 80-year-olds in America about trading. Over here, you don't have that concept. It's automatically assumed in society over here that if someone's older than you cannot challenge them. How dare you challenge someone that's older and is wiser and more experienced, just because they're older, right? And we know this because the culture here is set up to where, like, in my Vietnamese channel, I address everyone as my younger brother. Like, I always address myself as, hey, this is Big Brother Ty, you know, how are you little brothers doing, or how are you little sisters doing? And that's how I talk in Vietnamese in my Vietnamese channel, right? In my English channel, I just talk like I do right now, right? And so over here, right, everyone, if someone is and I'll explain this more in detail in a separate video, right? But over here, if somebody's older than you, you have to address them as older brother, uncle, grandfather, or sir, mister. You have to address them, right? If they're older than you. You don't have a choice. Even if they're older than you by 1 month, by 1 minute, 1 hour, you have to address them as older brother, right? And the language is set up to where it's extremely very difficult for you to disrespect somebody that's older than you, because you have to address them as uncle or older brother. Like you have to. So you really can't say like, hey, you dumb motherfucker, you know, like you know, you can't talk shit to someone, because at the end of it, you have to say, oh, you dumb motherfucking piece of shit, older brother, like, or uncle. Like, it's really weird to even say that, because it doesn't, like, grammar-wise and language-wise, it just doesn't make sense. for you to say that. You know, it's like me saying to you in English, like, "Hey, I think you're a really piece of shit, madam or Mrs. or Mister." Right? Excuse me, sir, you're a real piece of shit gentleman. You know, it just doesn't sound right. Like, why are you calling me bad names or bad person? You're talking shit to me, but then you're also being polite and calling me sir and mister. Okay? Unless in America, the only time someone would do that is they're being sarcastic. Okay? They really don't mean that. They're just saying that just to mess with you. But over here, there's really no sarcasm in that manner. And speaking of sarcasm, right? I also want to mention also in the saving face culture, the reason that if you guys ever wonder why Asians don't understand sarcasm in America, or you know, like some of the stuff that Dave Chappelle does, or some of the stuff that you know, who are some of the, like Dave Chappelle, who else? George Carlin, like, you know, that sarcastic humor like that, right? Or Seinfeld, guys like that. The reason why you don't have that, or like Kramer, right? The reason why you don't have that is because sarcastic humor involves self-deprecation, meaning that self-deprecation means that you say bad things about yourself, like, you know, like, oh, I'm too stupid to understand this. Like, you would never hear someone say that over here. Like, it's so shameful to say that I'm stupid or I'm dumb or I'm uneducated, right? That one of the reasons why my Vietnamese channel has thousands of followers, right, is because the Vietnamese people here have never seen another Vietnamese person admit that they're stupid, dumb, or uneducated in public. And I'm like the first Vietnamese citizen ever online to admit that I'm dumb, stupid, and ignorant, right? And that I'm uneducated, right? And so because of that, it actually creates a lot of trust with my viewers, because no one in Vietnam would dare say something. No man in Vietnam would dare say something like that, because that is so lowering your status and losing face. And the fact that I'm willing to get on video and say that and record it and broadcast it out to the rest of the world, they think either I'm as stupid as shit or crazy as shit, or I must really be the most honest person in Vietnam. Okay, so because of that, that's why I have a huge following in Vietnam, in the Vietnamese space, right? Now, I did not know this until I came back to Vietnam to relocate here. When I met a lot of my viewers, I asked them, hey man, why are you following my channel? Like, I can barely speak Vietnamese fluently, right? And you know, most of the shit I say is just like, you know, personal development and self-help stuff. Why is everyone following me? And that's like the number one thing that they always tell me is that, hey man, you know, like it's really weird, because in Vietnam, no guy will admit that he's dumb, stupid, or uneducated, and you're like the first Vietnamese that we've seen do that. And you do it and you don't give a shit what anybody feels or thinks, and that's the reason why we trust you, because we know that you're being honest, because nobody in Vietnam would dare say that about themselves. Okay, so because of that, you don't ask for help, you don't have sarcastic humor, you don't admit that you're uneducated, even if you don't know. Even if you don't know, you have to say you know. If you don't know, like somebody asks you, hey, you live here, what's the directions to get to the store over here, or the coffee, or the restaurant here? Even if you don't know, you say, yeah, it's down there. You just say that so that you don't lose face and show that you don't know your own neighborhood in front of other people, right? And to give you an example, this is funny as shit. Like the other day, I went to the police station because I have to get them to notarize that I'm a resident here in District 7, so I can get some my personal property that I sent from America that's in the Vietnamese customs office. I have to prove that I'm actually living here for them to give me my personal property without charging me tariffs on it, or like massive tariffs on it, okay? So I go to the police station and I tell them, hey, I need you guys to notarize and confirm that I'm a resident here. You know, here's my lease and my apartment lease and everything. And they go, oh, you got to fill out this form here. And you know, I don't read Vietnamese 100%, right? So I'm asking, hey, like, what are these words here? And they're looking at me like, what are you? Now at first, now keep in mind this, okay? the Vietnamese police stations, right? They're always like suspicious whenever somebody looks weird comes in. Now, I obviously do not look like a Vietnamese local when I come in there, just the way I dress, the way I walk and everything. First of all, I'm wearing shorts and sandals to come in there, which is not what you're supposed to do. When you go into any government office, you have to wear long pants and a dress shirt, and you have to wear shoes. Like, if you go in there with a t-shirt and shorts on, they look at you crazy like, what the hell are you doing here in t-shirts and shorts? That's disrespecting the government offices, okay? So when I come in there, they're supposed to say no to me and kick me out and not let me do anything in there. But they can tell that I'm not like a local Vietnamese, I don't know shit. So they just kind of like let me slide with it. And then whenever, and this is what really let them know that I had no clue what I was doing, okay? And that I'm not some government like spy to come in and inspect them and spy on them or something from the higher offices, you know. And then they asked me, well, it says right there, can't you read it and understand it? And I say, no, I've never been to a Vietnamese school before, so I'm ignorant and stupid as shit when it comes to reading Vietnamese. And all the police officers in the police office, they all stopped, like they literally just froze mid-track when I opened my mouth and said that I'm uneducated, stupid, and ignorant as shit. You know, I didn't say stupid as shit, but I said I'm ignorant, and stupid, and uneducated because I never went to Vietnamese schools. And they all like literally froze, stopping their tracks in the police office, and like the whole police station just stopped. And they couldn't believe what they just heard, that for a Vietnamese guy to admit that he was uneducated, stupid, and ignorant, right? That was just unheard of. And so they didn't even know how to respond. They didn't even know how to react. They were like, is this really happening? Like, a Vietnamese guy admit that he's uneducated and stupid? You know, that is so shameful, and that's so losing face, that they couldn't believe I actually stood there in front of all these, you know, educated police officers, right? You know, all the police officers are, you know, like college educated, and, you know, they had to go to the police academy and everything, very prestigious position for them, right? And it was like, there's like a dozen of them in the office, and they're like all shocked that I would open my mouth and say that. And one of them asked me if I'm a Vietnamese citizen or an American citizen, right? And I said, no, I'm a Vietnamese citizen, I'm not an American citizen. And I literally had them in suspense and shock for a moment, looking at me like they couldn't believe that a Vietnamese citizen would open their mouth and admit that they're stupid and uneducated in front of everyone, right? Because it's so shameful. That is so shameful to say that, okay? And I was like, no big deal. And so what happened was, one of the security guard, not the police officers, but the security guard, he couldn't believe I said that. And out of all the people there at the police station, the security guard is like the lowest on the totem pole. He's just like in America we would call it a rent-a-pig, right? But over here, it was very obvious he was like the lowest on the totem pole there. So he couldn't believe I said that I was stupid and uneducated. So he grabbed my arm and he's like, "Oh, hey, come out here, come out here. You gotta get an application over here." And what he really meant was that he wanted to pull me out away from all the other police officers to save my face. Like he felt that, oh, you know, like I didn't know how to communicate to them, and I'm losing so much face in front of everyone that he had to come in and rescue me, you know, and prevent me from losing more face. And so he pulled me aside. He got me the applications that I needed. And he goes, "Here, you got to fill this out and fill in your name here and your birthday here, and then you bring it back in there, and then they'll notarize it for you, right?" And so as I was filling out the form, I was like, "Hey, what does this say right here? Like, I don't understand what it says." You know, I asked the police officers in there, and he's like, "Well, that's where you got to put your province where you were born, and the ward and the commune and the town in which you were born in and everything." And he was telling me all this stuff, and then this is the funniest part right here, is that on the application, right, it says, "Why do you need the police notary for? What is the reason that you need this police notary?" And I wrote down there, I said, because the Vietnamese customs, I need to show this, the Vietnamese customs needs proof that I live here at this address, so that they don't charge me tariffs on the artwork that I sent from America back to me in Vietnam, right? And so the security guard, he goes, hey, you can't put that on the application. I said, well, that's what I need the notary for. And he said, no, you can't put that because that's too uneducated. That's too you can't put that on the government documents because they're going to think that you're uneducated, right? And I'm like, I am uneducated. I never went to a Vietnamese school, so that's what I need it for. And he goes, no. He goes, you got to put like, oh, this, you need the police notary for the purpose of this, for the, for this reason and for this. And he was like making a very complicated statement. I was like, dude, I just need it. The customs office needs it for my artwork, so they don't charge me tariffs on it. And he goes, no, that's too simple. And then he wrote down all this complicated bullshit. And then he told me, go ahead and copy this onto your thing, right? And then I forgot a few accent marks as I was writing it down in Vietnamese. And he goes, dude, you got to put the accent marks on there, on your name and everything, because that you don't want, you don't want to show that to the customs office and show that you're uneducated, right? So this thing with the education, everything, lack of education, the saving face and all that, it's a huge, massive thing, right? So I hope that this video, I've searched online and I've never like really got I've not seen a good video that explains the Asian saving face culture very well. And I hope that this video, right, and all the examples in my personal life and my personal experience helps you guys understand this saving face culture much more, okay? And it helps you whenever you travel here, whether for tourist reasons or for business reasons, right? Vietnam is a fast emerging country, guys. If you want to start a company here, start a business here, right? I'll make videos about that later on. The cost to start up a business is extremely low. Very, very little laws and regulations. So if you understand and you want to take the risk and you want low cost of labor and you want to put up with the first 2-3 months of having to deal with the Vietnamese employees with the saving face culture and mindset, if you watch this video, you'll have a better understanding of how to do it, and you can shortcut your way to having better success and having a better time here in Vietnam when you guys come here for business or for tourist reasons, okay? Thanks for watching this video. If you guys like this video or you guys want me to talk more about how it is in Vietnam, leave it in the comments below. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Hey Tai Zen. I talk a lot about cryptocurrency trading and investing there, more so on there than I do on this video series. And then, so follow me on there. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in a future video. And I hope that this video helps you guys have a better understanding and a better appreciation for this fascinating concept of the saving face culture in Vietnam. I'll see you guys in the next video.